Meg, hi. So awesome to be doing this with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, Deepak. This has been a long time coming, but I'm extremely excited to be part of the adopted the first 10-ish episodes. I'm guessing.
Yes, this is episode number 5.
It's lucky number 5.
So Meg, tell us a little bit more about yourself to the audience. What I'm very intrigued by is I was looking at your profile. I think you started off as a software engineer at Microsoft, and then you have made your way up to like leading product at Dropbox, Twilio, and more recently, I think you're the CPO at Crunchbase. Like, so walk us through the journey. How does a software engineer end up as like a product head and a CPO? Like, how did you do it?
Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to sort of talk about it. So I graduated. I grew up in India. Then I started work over at Microsoft. And then when I was at Microsoft, I realized, okay, this is interesting. And like the performance considerations, great. Like, yes, I need to have these end-to-end tests. All of these make sense. But I always wanted to know why. Like, why does any of this actually matter? And then that ended up being the journey that took me into the career path of a product manager, which is like, why do we do the things we do? Why does this performance improvement matter for this customer, but not the others? And then after about 3 years there, so I was part of engineering, then I did some consulting there. And then as I was figuring out what to do with my life in general, I was like, okay, I should get some sort of a formal training as to what product management looks like. And then Stanford seemed to produce the most sort of product management-y people at that time. So the program that I went to was the one that Kevin Systrom, Marissa Mayer graduated out of. And I was like, this is great. Let me get a good, well-rounded education here. And then so that got me spinning into the world of product management. Then I went startups, few other startups there, then did Dropbox and Twilio. And then I think this whole curiosity of like, why do you care? Like, why does the customer care? Why does anyone care? Why does a business care? Is how I got started and then going into the world of product.
It's awesome. And you've worked at a variety of different companies in the last few roles, right? It's like Dropbox, Twilio, and Crunchbase. So as you saw different, I'm assuming the scale would have been different. The business is different. Products are very different. So what have been some of your learnings in the last few roles?
Yeah, that's a great question. With startups, it was so liberating. It was like, yes, I can just go, I can validate it with a couple of customers because you only have a few customers. They like it. You work with your team, you go ship it, and you have immediate value. And then like as that scales out, where you're like, oh, you're not day-to-day figuring out this project anymore. There's a calendar, there's a release, and there's a launch. And then I really wanted to figure out how do things work at like a Dropbox public company scale. And that's what led me to go from Hearsay to Dropbox. And then at Dropbox, it was just like there were systems and processes and structures, which it takes a while to learn that. And then once you learn it, it's still the same thing. It's like taking the customer point of view, taking the business point of view, figuring out what is technically possible, and then just like rapidly iterating with the market. And then the scaling principles, which have generally helped me, has always been like customer empathy, understanding where the monetary value is. Like you just have to be in the line of the value capture. Otherwise, like it might be a fantastic product, but if you're not making money for it, then you're going to struggle. And then the change to go from Twilio was like I'd never done usage-based pricing, or I had never done like a stack, which was not the application stack, but it was the thing that you build the application on top of. And that was a pretty unique experience where there's just like the abstraction away from communication. You can send text, you can send voices, you can send video. That was just like a fascinating learning experience. And then coming back to Crunchbase was also like going back into the startup life where I had used Crunchbase every single company I was at, where I had to identify investors, go to Crunchbase. I had to find early companies that have traction, go to Crunchbase. And I'm sure this is true for you too, right? Like with your Slintel journey.
Every day.
Exactly. And then I think what I realized in that journey is like I really cared about the kind of customers whose life was getting better. And with founders like yourself, and you're on this journey a third time, right? Like so repeat founders who have seen the market, VCs who are looking to find it, and people who are trying to just like prop up this entire ecosystem. You just want to do your best work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of learnings there. Especially I like the part where you said, at Twilio, you had to kind of think of the layer that builds products, which is very, very different than usage-based pricing. So that would have been a super interesting challenge in your career. Were there any moments, Meg, in your whole career where you felt like these were pivotal moments that really changed your view of life or your trajectory?
Yeah, I subscribe to this theory that like early career, the experiences that happen, they kind of shape you in a way that later or like mid-career experiences don't. So I graduated in 2008, just as the financial crisis was hitting. And then there were just like, it was the great financial crisis. There were layoffs everywhere. And then as part of a company at that point, you're just like trying to see what you can do to be more helpful or to be more critical. And without that exposure, I think like that has led in a long, just there have been a lot of behavioral things, but it's also been like, don't wait for permission. Just like do the thing that you're seeing not getting done. Because if you have a permissionless mindset, I think you're going to travel pretty far and wide. So that was kind of critical. Then graduating from the startup to the public company life, it was very interesting about how the mindset has to change because you're planning more. There has to be a connection between like the business strategy to the product strategy. And then just understanding that you're in a different environment and what got you success in one place will not get you success in the other was pretty critical. And then as sort of you start leading teams, a lot of that is working not through you directly, but through how you direct and then influence the team. And all of that has been just pivotal in terms of like having good mentors, talking to people who have like aspirationally had the sort of experiences that you, or people who are founders like yourself, which is like, hey, is this the right way of doing this versus not? And it's a lot of like trying to learn as much as you can and trying to be there and then understanding from sort of other people's experiences because you can't be there all the time.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about product management since that's that's your forte and you've been doing that for a while now. Having seen products at different companies, like how does one really build products that users love or that are aligned to customer needs? What has been your experience?
That's a great question. Before I answer that, though, I will just like flip the question back to you. Like you have seen the markets change across the board, right? Like where private companies were a small part of it, then it became like a really large part of it. Like what one or two instances in your career where you were like, this was pivotal. I could take a left turn or a right turn, but I chose this turn and I'm happy I did.
Yeah, as you were talking about it, I was reflecting through my own journey. I think the 2008-9 financial crisis was like a perfect moment for me to reflect on my career. It was my first job. I was in iBanking in Australia, Macquarie Bank, and I got the pink slip, right? So I had lost my job. I had to move back to my home country. And just like you talked about permissionless environment, I was thinking of like, how do you not depend on anyone? Like, how can you build something where you're your own boss and you can take control and you can build something for the world? And it just like got me, like, I got into like a mode where I could take on more risks and experiment. And it's okay to fail. It's okay to tell people that, hey, I got laid off. Like, there's nothing bad in that. So that was definitely one defining moment. I think the second one would be when I transitioned from the enterprise to startup world, very similar to what you did, because there's no longer set processes. Like you're just given a blank slate and say, like, figure it out. There's nobody around you in a small company. There's probably 5-6 people around you, and you have to just like go figure it out yourself. I think those were the two moments.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
On the product front, right? So I feel compelled to say this every time this question comes up is like, you're not the CEO of the product, right? Like your job at best is a translator and then you are an auditor. So a translator, what do I mean by that? It's basically like you have to find customers that care about the thing which you're building. And the riskiest thing is demand. Like the thing that you build, we will figure out a way to go build it. But if there is no demand for it, like that's the biggest failure. And that happens time and time again. In public companies, in like private companies, you're so in love with an idea that you want to see it out in the world, but you have never de-risked it enough. And that's where the auditing part of it comes, which is the thing we said, it almost never lands like that. It's like, hey, we have to cut corners. We have a release schedule. Oh, this integration is important. So you have to make sure that there is a slice of value. And you are, until that risk is mitigated on the demand side, you are not sure. And if you keep those two parts of shipping products, everything else is kind of secondary. Like everybody gets almost religious about like, oh, we're agile or waterfall, we're going to do sprint points or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, none of that matters, right? Like, that's all downstream of demand and that's all you care about.
Pretty cool. I love that analogy. So at Crunchbase, I think you've you oversee product design and marketing too, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So how do these all come together in an integrated experience so you deliver value to customers?
Yeah. So it was a learning experience with marketing, definitely. Because as I run product as well as design teams before, as well as some parts of product marketing. But then you have other parts of marketing, which is brand, comms, PR. And then as you talk through them, you understand that it's two sides of the same coin. It's what's the promise that we're making the customers, and are we doubling back, and then are we building the same experience? And it has been pretty critical to see how the organization has evolved, where the product manager will talk to the product marketer, but it's not because it's a cadence or there's a weekly one-on-one or something. It's just because they are dependent on each other for their success. And a great example is like pricing. So we're like, hey, we should think about pricing separately in this particular use case, because as you know, right, like there's a lot of changes which are happening with pricing. So we're like, should we think about seed-based pricing? Should we do usage? Should we do something else? And it's all happening organically without you having to like point people in a particular direction. I think like that interaction was very natural with product design and engineering. But like the more marketing comes into the fold, the more you understand what's the surface area that you're trying to build out for. And it's been really like I've been very fortunate to see that here at Crunchbase.
Yeah. I think very few companies does it all come together in one umbrella, but I can see the benefits of it as you speak, especially if you want to deliver what the market wants, right? So Crunchbase and maybe even Dropbox have these unique products that cater to both self-serve users, and they're big self-serve companies, right, with a large maybe DAU, MAU base, as well as you have enterprise clients, right? So how do you balance the two out when you're building products?
That is such a great question. So at Dropbox, when it started, it was the whole space race, right? Like you share some file or some folder out, you get 2 gigs, I get 2 gigs. Universities would have it. Anybody who would interview at Dropbox would get 50 gigs or like whatever. And that basically created a really large install base of people. And then based on their particular demands, you could either put them part of a team. As that team grows, you have an enterprise use case. And the most beautiful thing about Dropbox was it grew organically. Like the more things you did, the more space you needed, the more files you shared. And that's like the organic unit of value expanding. And for us, as we looked at it at Crunchbase, we were like, okay, we started and we were a way for tech companies to learn about other tech companies. Then we diversified. We're like, it's not just about tech companies. You have to care about companies that are private. Like on our platform, we have more companies that are not funded than companies that are funded. So in that world, we're like, hey, private companies as a measure of the economy is just growing. So like less companies have gone public in the last 3 years than they did at the peak of the great financial crisis. So they are a growing, increasing, and more important part of the economy. So if you want to do business with them, which you must in order to grow, then where do you come to go get that information? And here it's like the individual need is very different than the business need. The individual need is like, I was talking to somebody yesterday where they're like, hey, I use Crunchbase in this unique way, which is I'm a job seeker. I want to see which company has gotten funding so I can apply to them. And then we are coming up with predictions around fundraising. We're like, I want to front run the hiring manager. So my resume is at the top of the pile. And then they're like, but I don't like you guys because you used to have an annual price. I was like, oh, that's true. But we changed that. So now there is a monthly price for you to go. So it's really meeting the user where they're at. And then we talk to a business who are like, hey, GTM Rev Ops, we need to know where to allocate our funds. Like, should we go and put our best CSMs on the accounts that are going to be growing? Mm-hmm. And that's not an individual use case. That's a business use case. And that's how we sort of map the whole individual self-serve versus what we call like the direct sales motion here. And like the three things,
yeah, I was just asking a question. So fascinating to hear that. Like, quick question. So do you separate out the product teams too? I understand the go-to-market motions are very different, right? Self-serve versus enterprise. But product teams, do you have a separate team doing self-serve?
We do not. I've seen so at Dropbox, you had like a self-serve growth team, you had like a business team, you had sort of separate teams. I think at scale, it makes sense. But for us, what became important was we're a much smaller team. So how do you have empathy across comparing the features that you get? And it'll be like SSO. We already have SSO. Then it'll be like some deeper integration into some business system. how does that compare with something that helps the trial experience for the self-serve user? And if you have the same person across them, then they can figure out, are there ways to go make progress on both versus can you pick one versus the other? And why are you doing it?
Right.
And if you silo them out, then you automatically delegate the decision to a layer higher. And that's just tough, especially in like a much smaller.
Yeah. Makes sense. So when you're building product features, you can always like think of, hey, are we going to gate this and make this an enterprise feature or self-serve, and think around all the dynamics of that, right? So it makes sense having like one team do all of that.
And just one note on this is also like, it's very important to get like the team that does paid media, talking to the team that does sales, to the team that does product feature planning, to be like, what are the needs and can you project that out forward? And as leaders, you've met Neil. So it's incumbent that we talk to each other enough times to figure out where the priorities lie so we can direct the teams. So that internal sort of alignment and harmony will show when you have like go-to-market motions, which are different, but also are kind of on the same mean.
That's a good point. Moving on to more like, let's move into the AI world for a moment, right? Like that's the world I think we are living in now. And let's intersect both, like building product along with, all the innovation that's happening in AI. So how do you, like, when you look at your product roadmap, generally, I'm assuming there's a bunch of things customers are asking for, free users are asking for, and there's some AI specific features you want to build, like you'll have an AI vision of your own, right? How do you find the balance?
That is such a great question. And I think if you'd asked me this question 2 months ago, I think I would have had a totally different answer. Where we're like, yes, we have to market it as AI. But I think as you look at AI, there's Ariana who runs marketing for us. She's like, it can't just be AI for the sake of AI. Like we have to have this way in which we think about AI in service of our customers and our users. So in that world, we have to be very careful about where we are using AI across the board. We have proprietary differentiated data, and then all the signals which we're extracting of it has to be done through the kind of AI, either old school ML inference models or the new Gen AI LLM stuff. But how you expose that to the users of like, here's AI, try it out. And it's like new and novel. You can use it to have much clearer ROI and you can do things much faster versus this is human validated. The data quality is there, the quality of the features. There's no AI anywhere here, even though under the surface, it could be using the same path. So it's like how you make the connection between what the market needs versus what the PR team might be telling you of like, hey, let's get on this train. Like we have been on this train for a long time because we've had so much data on this. Now it's just a matter of like using it for the use case because you have to keep the customer front and center.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at AI features, how do you know like if it's a good to have or must have when customers are not telling you about it? And sometimes you have to have a vision and maybe realize that vision, right? So just curious on how do you do it?
Yeah, it's such a great question because as we look at the path that we have taken, it is all making sure that our data is useful for our customers. And our customers break down into like, there's entrepreneurs, there's VCs, there's sales, there's BD people. And what they would tell us is we want more X. And that more X could be leads for sales. It could be more investment opportunities for startups, for VCs, and it could be more like early businesses to break into, to go find design partners for entrepreneurs like yourself. And what we are finding is it's become more about quality of like, I want more matches versus more lists. And that's how we translate it down, which is how can we increase relevance? Because that's the thing which matters the most, and cut out all this. And that's really the vision, which is at some point, there won't be an interface, right? Like you get up, there's 4 things for you. It's just all kind of orchestrated. And how you close it is your unique human skill because there's still going to be a human at the end of it. But this spray and pray world of like, I'll push a button and 2,000 things go out. I don't think that lasts very long.
Completely agree with you on that. I think eventually we all need outcomes, right? From most applications to, right? Doesn't matter how the UI looks, how many buttons you have, where you're taking me. Just give me the outcome, right? And that's where you're going. So on that note, do you think, like, if you look at applications today, products today, do you think AI can play a role in improving adoption of these products and how?
I think this is my personal view is like we went through this time of plenty, right? Like where for every single problem, there was a point solution. And then some of those point solutions wanted to be a platform. Some of them grew into a platform. But as you look at how AI can help them all, I think onboarding across the board, where people, I think as we talk to our customers, even we did like a moderated research panel a few days ago, and the willingness for anyone to learn a new user interface is like next to zero, where they're like, I don't want to learn about it. I just want to tell you. And then what we found out was like, that's basically the whole population. But then there are power users who are like, I still want to validate the stuff, which is coming out of you. And then if I want to, if I want to like turn some knobs over there, make some filters, I still want that to be a choice because it's too clumsy to go prompt all of it. And I was like, I equated it to my own experience where if I'm looking for, if I'm on Amazon and I search for yoga balls, then like I'm Prime, 4-star plus reviews, all of that. And like all of that behavior, it used to take years for that to come into B2B or enterprise. These days, it's coming in almost the same time. So like that cycle time has gone way down.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember from our last conversation, I think Crunchbase also built something called Scout, if I'm not wrong, right? It's basically doing a little bit of what you're saying, right? Just give a command and get the output done.
Yeah, I think I can show you like the V1 of this, which is basically our AI search.
Sure, yeah, that'd be amazing.
So this is my Crunchbase screen, as you can see. So search used to be, you had one place to search for companies, and then you would have a lot of knobs. But now if I'm like, hey, I want startups that are in fintech, I just press enter. That's what people want to start off with, where there's no willingness for anyone to get to a place where they have to start with inputs. And the cursor of the blank pages is quite. And then as you're here, you can be like, okay, I can go edit this search. I can find signals over here, which is I want companies that are growing. And then you have a list of companies over here, which are highly tailored to what you asked for. And then as I go into this world, if I look at, let's pick a company here, I want to see what do I need to know about them. And here, the growth outlook says it's growing. And there's a summary. So we iterated on this copy for a while, which is what's the summary? Like, why do we think there's a judgment on this that says it is likely to be growing? And here it's because they have acquired the platform. So they're the acquirer. And then as you learn more into this, you can go into other details over here where you have the leadership hires, there's investor insight details. It's just a fascinating way for us to bring what people are already doing and bring down the ROI for them. Stop sharing.
It's pretty amazing to see that because I think AI insights and summaries is one thing where you're predicting stuff, which is very, very helpful, by the way. But then getting AI to do actions on the product, like the filter that you just showed, like fintech, like people don't want to learn a new interface, right? And everybody does filters differently. I feel like, at least when you're showing your screen, what went through my mind is it's the interaction between prompting, getting to a screen, and then maybe clicking. So probably both are not going to go away, but you need to have both work really well together to get you to where you need to be in the fastest amount of.
That's exactly it. And I think as I look back at like the moderated interviews we did in the past to now, the trust is increasing, which is I think they're going to do what we asked them to do. Whereas in the past, it was like, I don't know if the prompt was right. I have heard these things hallucinate, but we are grounding all of this in our data. So there's pretty limited chance for hallucination. And then it goes back to the time when like Uber and Lyft came out, where you would just like get in somebody else's car and the payment was done, and then you never had to transact. And I feel like that trust level is slowly building up with these AI features inside of Ford.
I absolutely agree with you on that. I think AI was used for assistance for the most part, if you remember, right? Like just ask questions, get answers. Now actions is like this trust building and actions. And I'm seeing it starts with the fetch actions, like get data and show me. People are still a little skeptical about writing, editing, updating stuff. But I think we're getting there. I think as the confidence improves, a lot of actions can be done directly via commands.
Totally agree with that. I think consumer demand will kind of lead the way there.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on a little bit into perspectives of AI in general, away from product management, right?
Yeah.
So like you've seen all the breakthroughs in AI come out, month after month, quarter after quarter. What breakthroughs excite you the most?
I'll give you two. So the first one has been this like SaaS-based pricing of like there's a seat, there's an employee, all of this happens. And it was a time of plenty. You had like wall-to-wall deployments. You know this, like you start with a team, then you get to the whole company. And then we have moved on to this place where now you're selling the work, like really the outcome, as you said. And that's been fascinating to see, where the speed at which a lot of companies, even Salesforce, when they I think introduced Agentforce, was like, now we're going to look at outcomes. And I think the clip at which the industry has adopted it has really been surprising. So that's the whole like business ramification across AI.
I've never seen a big company like Salesforce announce things so quickly in quick succession too.
Right.
And that's probably the power of AI right now.
And then from a technical perspective, like feels like it was 6 or 7 months ago when the image generation from Midjourney, like there would like the hands were weird, you had like 6 fingers or something. And I was playing with HeyGen yesterday, and they are quite good. Like the talking head product demo avatars are very, very good. So that's just mind blowing how quickly that has grown.
Yeah, absolutely. Lip syncing and avatar generating is like next level right now. Cool. What's your overall perspective of the AI ecosystem? So we hear a lot of things, right? There's AI teammates, AI agents, copilots, and there's applications that are also building AI on top. What do you think? Like where is the world moving, and what's your worldview here?
Yeah, I don't think I have a unique worldview here, but I think AI is just the extension of the software stack. Like just like you host on Amazon, you spin up a bunch of serverless functions, and then they pay for credits. I think AI is going to extend that further, where you're not going to start with a blank page ever. I don't think you're going to be onboarded to anything. You're just going to summon the thing you want to do, and then it's going to start you off there. And then the thing that I am unsure of is how fast workflows evolve. So my old boss started this company, which is like a deep workflow on financial services. And I feel like things like that are completely unplayed, which is it's large TAM, very, very kind of dedicated workflow. And it's the place where I think we're going to see a lot of value getting generated. But I think AI is going to be sort of commonplace as you add at how we essentially start building software. The AI teammates has been interesting. Like I was at Disrupt and we saw the like AI SDR, AI BDR. And I was like, this is fascinating, great demo. And I was like, not exactly sure how this evolves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on one hand, there is like this natural extension of AI, like you said, applications, everybody has to adopt AI, but there's also new use cases like the AI BDR was like not a use case earlier, right? And there's so many functions where humans were doing tasks, and part of those tasks, like aiding humans or kind of doing end-to-end tasks is possible via AI, right? Nowadays. So that opens up like a whole new market and so on.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's just like imagining use cases that were not possible before. I think like what else would an AI teammate need? You're like that world has not been imagined yet. And I feel like this whole question around like what happens with the next 100,000 jobs that have to make use of these tools, be more efficient. Like what areas will they? Because I think we're looking at like brand new markets that have not been defined yet, just getting open.
Absolutely. What an exciting time. So Meg, I've loved doing this. I would love to do a quick fire with you. I hope that's okay. I have a few questions. So yeah, what's the most promising AI trend for you right now?
Just a deep integration into software as a whole. Like I've used Replit AI coding, and I built this like event page application where I don't have to go to a specific thing to generate event invitations for my kid's birthday, as an example. And that took me a couple of hours. And it's just like bringing the barrier down. I feel like my kid could do that next year if she knew exactly what she wanted. I've just been fascinated by it. Like bringing the barrier to entry down will just lead to much more innovation and a lot more,
What's an AI tool that you cannot live without?
Perplexity.
And why?
I have been fascinated by how little it hallucinates. It's been a part of my stack ever since it was like, it can just like give me the answer. And as refreshers, this was super interesting to me, where like in statistics, like you're trying to figure out like what's the power, how do you get like the A/B test in the right sort of statistical significant thing. And it took me about 10 minutes to just like refresh the concepts and have a coherent conversation. Which is why we're also investing in a pretty deep partnership with them here at Crunchbase. So I'm very bullish on.
Yeah, very excited about how that partnership shapes up. Um, what's the most exciting use case of AI that you have seen recently?
Videos. I personally did not think the models would become so good so quick. And I think we're probably on the cusp of an AI generated movie that is good, or an AI generated podcast that is amazing. Like the creativity that goes into making this has been just phenomenal.
What's one AI feature you think all products should have in the future?
I think you should never make anyone start with a blank page. Like it should always have, like, what are you here to do? And not like onboarding for my sake, but it's like onboarding for your sake, right? Like just make the thing easy for you.
Absolutely. Last question. So what's the favorite part about working in Crunchbase?
I think just the customers that we can impact and working with the people here who are as passionate about the customers, if not more than just orienting them in one goal, like making sure the promise that we make to our customers, we just live up to them. It's been just the journey of like epic proportions for me.
Awesome. Cool. On that note, Meg, I wanted to say thank you. You've been a fantastic guest. There's so much learning for all of our audience here. Thank you.
Deepak, thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Awesome. Take care.